You ever meet someone who can make a lie sound like the truth, and the truth sound like a lie? That's the kind of person this story is about. And by the time it's over, you'll understand just how dangerous that kind of charm can be. There are people you dislike, and then there are people you wish you could erase from your daily life entirely. And yet, sometimes life serves them a punishment so brutal, you find yourself whispering, "They didn't deserve that." This is one of those stories, and it starts in a place you'd never expect. A perfectly ordinary suburban school. It was the kind of school where the air smelled faintly of dry erase markers and pencil shavings, where every Monday morning the hallways buzzed with a mix of kids swapping weekend stories and teachers silently running through their mental checklists. We weren't fancy, just a modest public school, brick building, squeaky floors, and a playground that was always too hot in summer and too icy in winter. I've been working there for years, long enough to know which kids needed a gentle push, which parents were quietly supportive, and which ones, well, made every staff meeting a headache. In every school, there's that parent, the one whose name alone makes people sigh. For us, that was her. Let's call her Marissa. Marissa had this way of walking into the building like she owned it. Tall, sharply dressed, heels clicking on the tile, eyes scanning the room like a hawk looking for prey. She didn't come in to say hello. She came to win. If her daughter had an issue, it was never a misunderstanding. It was a battle. And if you were unlucky enough to be the teacher in question, you'd better have your paperwork airtight, because she'd find a way to twist it against you. Her daughter, let's call her Brittany, was a miniature version of her mother in every way. The same sharp tongue, the same air of superiority. But unlike her mother, Brittany didn't wait for people to cross her. She went out looking for targets. If there was a shy, quiet kid in the room, Brittany found them and pushed until she got a reaction. She wasn't just a mean girl. She was strategic about it. She knew how to pick her moments when no teacher was watching, how to frame it, so she was the victim if someone tried to tell on her. One ordinary Tuesday morning, everything shifted. A rumor started whispering its way through the staff room before first bell. Brittany had accused one of our best teachers, a man I'll call Mr. Lawson, of hitting her. The words felt heavy, even just spoken aloud. Mr. Lawson wasn't just respected, he was beloved. The kind of teacher who stayed after school to help kids struggling with math, who bought supplies out of his own paycheck, who actually listened when kids told him their problems. When I first heard it, my stomach dropped. Accusations like that, they stick, even if they're false. By the time the first period started, the entire staff was tense, whispers darting between classrooms. That day was a blur of administrators pulling people aside, parents being called, and Marissa storming through the front doors with that tight, cold smile she wore when she thought she had the upper hand. Brittany sat in the office, arms crossed, a carefully placed bandage on her arm that she kept gesturing to dramatically. At first, it was hard not to feel alarmed. The idea that one of our own might have hurt a child was terrifying. But then, cracks started to appear. Her story didn't line up. The timing was off. Other students in the class swore they'd seen nothing. One even quietly told the counselor, "She's making it up. She told me yesterday she was going to get him in trouble." By the end of the week, the truth was impossible to ignore. The injuries were nothing more than makeup, a poorly blended smudge that came off on the nurse's fingers when she touched it. Faced with evidence, Brittany finally admitted it. She'd faked everything. For most people, that would have been the end of it. But not Marissa. No, she doubled down. She filed a lawsuit against the school and Mr. Lawson personally. She started calling other parents, telling them they should be concerned about who was teaching their children. And poor Mr. Lawson, a man who'd never raised his voice at a student, had to walk into that classroom every day knowing some parents now looked at him with suspicion. I watched him age years in a matter of weeks. And that was just the beginning. The lawsuit dragged on for months, even though the accusation had been proven false. The legal process doesn't care about obvious lies. It cares about hearings, paperwork, and endless delays. Mr. Lawson stopped smiling. He still taught, still showed up early, but his eyes, they had that tired, shadowed look of someone living under constant suspicion. Some parents stopped talking to him altogether. One mother even pulled her son out of his class, just to be safe. It didn't matter that Brittany had confessed. It didn't matter that the bandage had been fake. In some people's minds, where there's smoke, there's fire. And Marissa, She thrived in it. Every meeting, every school board session, she'd stand up in her perfectly tailored suit and deliver some passionate speech about protecting our children. She wasn't fighting for justice. She was basking in the attention. She loved the cameras, the interviews, the chance to be the center of every conversation. By late spring, the lawsuit was tossed out. The judge all but laughed it out of the courtroom, calling it a waste of taxpayer resources and blatantly malicious. The staff breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Lawson tried to move on. But here's the thing about reputations. Once they're cracked, you can glue them back together. But everyone can still see the lines. The turn. It was the first week of summer break when the news hit. I was scrolling through my phone, half asleep on the couch, when a headline stopped me cold. Local woman found dead in suburban home. Foul play suspected. The photo was Marissa. The article was thin on details. No signs of forced entry. She'd been found in the living room by a neighbor after she failed to show up for a charity brunch. The police weren't releasing much, but the words "targeted attack" were floating around. By noon, the gossip was everywhere. Some people whispered about an affair gone wrong. Others hinted at shady business dealings. And, of course, more than a few glanced sideways at Mr. Lawson. I'll admit it, my first thought was, no, it couldn't be. But as the days passed, something about the whole thing gnawed at me. Brittany didn't shed a single tear at the vigil. She stood there, flanked by distant relatives, her arms crossed, expression unreadable. No red eyes, no trembling lip, just still. When people tried to hug her, she'd offer this awkward pat on the back, like she was comforting them, not the other way around. Whispers in the dark. 2 weeks later, a bombshell dropped. A former friend of Brittany's posted a string of cryptic tweets. Nothing explicit, just enough to stir curiosity. Some people are colder than you realize. When you brag about things you shouldn't, it eventually comes back to you. What kind of daughter laughs the day after her mother dies? It didn't take long for the internet to connect the dots. Reddit threads popped up overnight, speculating wildly. Some thought Brittany had hired someone. Others believed she'd done herself. The police remained quiet until the day of the arrest. The arrest. It was a humid July afternoon when Brittany was taken out of her house in handcuffs. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just smirked, like the whole thing was a game she'd already won. The story exploded across local and national news. The details were worse than anyone imagined. She'd poisoned her mother's tea over several weeks, using a toxin she'd ordered online under a fake name. The motive? A combination of resentment, financial greed, and, this is what chilled me the most, sheer boredom. She told a friend months earlier, it's not like she's going to live forever. Why not speed up? And here's where things took an even darker turn. When police searched her laptop, they found files, detailed notes about past tactics she'd used to ruin people she didn't like. Accusations she'd made against classmates. Teachers she'd tried to get fired. All laid out like trophies. Mr. Lawson's name was in there, under a folder literally labeled The Big Win. The trial was a media circus. Every day brought new witnesses, new revelations. And every day Brittany sat there like she was watching a mildly interesting TV show. No remorse. No fear. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, Mr. Lawson was in the gallery. I saw him exhale, like he'd been holding his breath for 2 years. Not because justice had been served for Marissa, but because, finally, the shadow over his own name was gone. The lesson. People like Marissa and Brittany thrive on control. They twist narratives, turn suspicion into a weapon, and treat lives like chess pieces. But every manipulator forgets one thing. When you sharpen a blade for others, you risk slipping and cutting yourself instead.